It's really important for us to delegate, but the way we do it, I think, adds a lot to the kind of environment we build, the atmosphere that people have towards each other. You can feel in the room when a project is being talked about is just knowing that delegation comes with a responsibility to care. Thanks for tuning in to the ProMarketer podcast, where whether you are in tax compliance, tax preparation, tax resolution, accounting, or any of the other slices of our crazy tax and accounting industry, we're here to bring you tools and strategies to market and build your practice like a pro. I'm Eugenia Brock, COO of TaxProMarketer, and I love traveling with my family. So even though I love our Kansas City office, I am also often working from different far-off little corners around the world. And at the moment, I'm in Turkey.
And I'm Katherine Hershberger. I'm Chief of Staff here at TaxProMarketer, and some would say I'm kind of the resident jokester on our team. Our regular podcast host, Christian Jones, one of our favorite guys, and the new CEO at TaxProMarketer, he asked Eugenia and I to step in this week to talk a little bit about a topic we love, which is employee care.
Yes. And if you're on the TaxProMarketer mailing list, you might have even seen Christian's email recently that went out talking about this very subject. I actually really love this line in particular, where he says he can speak from experience and say that it doesn't happen by chance, referring to employee care. There is no magic bullet theory of the happy workplace. And like any other created thing, it's birthed from intention. And I've experienced that too, and seen and helped with some of the efforts we've put into creating it, as has Katherine. And so that's what we wanted to talk about today.
I love that you took that line, Eugenia, because again, there really isn't this magic equation where you punch in a bunch of numbers and magically get employees that have a happy workplace environment. It really takes intentionality, which is what the quote implied. I like that.
Yeah, me too. And as Christian mentioned in that email as well, our production team just posted a video to our YouTube channel of our TaxProMarketer co-founder, Troy Lakey, who is brilliant, talking about company vision, values, and culture, something that he also has invested very deeply into. So we'll make sure that link is in the show notes for you to check out. I'm highlighting it because that's exactly where employee care falls. So let's dive into it. Employee care really starts with creating a work culture where people can thrive. Caring for employees goes beyond their pay and their benefits, which are important, but it actually means that they receive some other basic human needs and desires, like on a deeper level, things like appreciation, fulfillment, the belief that what they're doing really matters. So, Katherine, you're really great about this. So what does employee care mean for you?
I think you said it so well. Sometimes people think that work culture starts with compensation, but truly, I think it starts with the example that you give off as a business owner or as a leader. People catch more than you speak. So if they sense from you that you enjoy your job, if they sense that you enjoy them, they're much more likely to not only engage in their work, but also engage in the company, which is what you want for long-term employee, I would say, retention. So I'm sure you have some detailed thoughts on some of the practical elements of that, which I'm dying to hear.
I do, as do you, I know, because we have put in a lot to make this happen. There's a lot of different practices we do. There's a lot of different things throughout, like our regular rhythms that we do to try to foster really great work culture and a great environment for our employees. Things that we do sometimes just annually or at random so that it doesn't feel too forced or like, we're just saying, patting someone on the back or saying something nice because, it's that time of month where we need to say something nice to this person. So we try to keep it a little more flexible and relaxed, but we do also have some systems in place that make it more structured so that no one falls through the cracks. We don't miss anyone or fail to catch in time someone who is burning out or unhappy, unfulfilled in what they're doing. So we'll just maybe chat about some of those things that we do. One of the first things that came to my mind when I was thinking about this is how we create a culture of trust between our employees and between supervisors and those on their team in both directions. We try really hard to make sure that our employees know that they can make mistakes and that it is okay with us, because by human nature, everyone will make mistakes. But having that trust of knowing that you will be forgiven, we will help you work out a way to make it better. It's going to be okay, and it doesn't diminish your value as a person or a valued team member. It goes a long way with people actually being able to own their mistakes and being able to feel like they are safe to learn, safe to grow, safe to find ways to improve. And so even though sometimes those mistakes really do cost us, it is far worth it to have employees who are all looking for ways to progress in their career and in their place in our company. So that's one thing. Go ahead, Katherine. Yeah.
I actually had a thought on that, Eugenia, because so many companies that I've encountered, they will say that they have open communication and they're transparent and there's trust built there. I think we'd all like to say that about our work environment. But what I've seen is people will say it and it's not necessarily practiced when push comes to shove. It's a lot easier to say that you practice trust when someone makes a mistake. When there's not someone making a mistake, it's a lot harder when someone does something that really messes with your workflow and there's consequences. I think an example of this would be there was an employee that came to me with an idea about improving our communication ticketing system. And their idea was a great one, but it was one that our team had tried a few years prior and just found was not effective. Instinctually, I didn't have the time to really sit down and engage with this employee. I had other stuff that I needed to give attention to, and their presentation was a little bit arrogant. So my instinct was, I just don't have time for this. And then I took a step back and recognized if I wanted to encourage open communication, encourage them to be maybe sharing more ideas down the road, it was important. This was a pivotal moment. So rather than shutting the idea down, I let them know that we had given this method a try a few years ago and then explained some of the pain points we encountered. I asked the employee if they had ideas to overcome those pain points. They didn't, but because I affirmed their idea, later on, they brought these really great ideas to me. And there was truly this open line of communication rather than feeling shut down. I would say it was an example of trust. Do you have any examples of how someone made a mistake and it gave you an opportunity to practice that trust?
Yeah, actually, one of the things that comes to mind as a highlighted example, because it's so big and meaningful, is a time where we made a mistake on behalf of one of our clients. And that's scary to bring up and scary to even mention, especially right now when we're talking to clients. But, we're human too. And we did make an error in one of the emails that went out on behalf of a client to their contact list. And to me, this was early on in my days with TaxProMarketer. And I remember it making such an impact on me to see our CEO at the time, Nate Hagerty, take the blame for that and reach out to the client, letting them know that it was on him and his team, not chewing out anyone on the team for it. Like, of course, there were conversations about how to avoid that in the future, how to put systems in place to avoid that mistake. All of that happened, but there was no personal, you idiot, why did you do that kind of language, which happens in other companies. And instead, he was the one to reach out to the client to smooth things over, and also offered to reach out to the client's contacts himself and to send them an email saying, this was on me. We do send these emails on behalf of the client in a way that preserved the client's relationship with their contacts, but also alleviated any stress. As far as I know, that wasn't even necessary to go that far, but just the level to which he offered to offer that forgiveness to our team and to be the one to cover for that was very impressionable to me. So that's always stood out as like how much more so in little things where we really can fix them easily. And it doesn't cost us anything more than just being a little bit more slow and taking the time to see the people around us as people, like you were just describing, taking the time to explain something, taking the time to reaffirm that their ideas are good, even if this one isn't fitting for this specific situation. just putting value back into our team is so huge. So I love that. And that kind of, I think, segues to another one of our values that we talk about often, of just building that trust in the way that we pass things down and pass things up between managers and employees, and whoever can do the delegating or whoever can do the escalating when there's a problem. And one of our values is to find the way before escalating something up the chain when there's a problem, and to value workload before delegating something. And it's really important for us to delegate, but the way we do it, I think, adds a lot to the kind of environment we build and the kind of the atmosphere that people have towards each other, and that you can feel in the room when a project is being talked about, is just knowing that delegation comes with a responsibility to really care for your employees. So, Katherine, do you think you can speak a little to what that means, like on a practical level or philosophical, what we mean by valuing the workload before delegating in light of still needing to get things done?
Well, when you said that, it hit me pretty hard, because delegation is something that the average professional does not practice. They end up doing everything on their own. So if you find a professional who is delegating, they already consider that a win. So the idea of them delegating in a way that is tactful or caring to the people around them is probably a new concept. So we've had the privilege of working with founders, Nate and Troy, who are not only excellent at delegating with care, but they've had years of really honing in on that skill. And so we've reaped the benefit. I've been able to see what it means to take a project in hand, see the people who would be best suited to fulfill those, and then to reach out in a way that's honoring to all people involved. Now, that's kind of like a brief breakdown, but Eugenia is more of the detail-oriented person. Would you want to elaborate a little bit on my summary?
No, that is great. I mean, that's what we strive for. I think communication, it almost everything always comes back to communication. So it's in the how you communicate those things, exactly like you said, just taking the time to communicate to the person who is being delegated to that they were chosen for this because they are such a good fit. And we value that. And we know they have a lot of other things to do. And we still believe that they can do this too and do a really good job of it. And being there to support them in it, letting them know that there's an open door if they can't, or they run into problems, or it really is too much. Being available to listen to some of that. I think all of that plays into it. And along those lines too, just being there to listen to your team is such a big part of employee care. It goes all the way from the short good mornings you say when you walk into the office. And if you work remotely with some employees, like, it doesn't take away from the value of saying a good morning, sending a funny joke, posting something, if you have any kind of project management software that you use, just checking in on people on a personal level in lighthearted ways, and then also being available for them when it gets hard, when it's not lighthearted and they are going through a hard season. Within appropriate context, being available to them to talk about it or to hear some of what's on their heart or to give them space. We're big proponents of taking mental health days or taking time off when needed, because an employee who is full of energy and happy to work is a lot more valuable than someone who is burning out and miserable and just clocking in just to clock in because they have to. Katherine, what's some of the ways you've seen that on your team? With our dynamics, we do a rhythm of sabbatical cycles and sprint cycles, which basically just means we give our employees routine time off. So how have you seen that play out?
Practically speaking, it's never easy to give an employee time off. I mean, they're there for a reason, that you need them. And the audience that we have today, some really hardworking professionals who, during the busiest season of the year, they're just trying to sleep at night. There's not a lot of extra time. So the idea of giving someone time away or time to rest is not really talked about because it seems impractical. It is practical, though. There's actually efficiency in rest. So whether it be giving that person an hour off or even just 5 minutes where they can breathe, where they can rest, it makes a huge difference. It also demonstrates that you care about them on a personal level. From a practical standpoint, that speaks to employee retention. So if you want to sustain employees over a long period of time, but you're doing this very busy schedule, this very busy season with your practice, you need to have rest scheduled into that. So whether it be sabbatical rhythm, as TaxProMarketer does, or even just taking time to notice when someone's burning out. If you notice that someone on your team is just exhausted or underperforming, our instinct is to tell that person to push through and, oh, make sure you take time to rest on the weekends. That's a great sentiment, but it doesn't help the employee with their current predicament. So if you know that person is generally hardworking and they've been exhausted and lagging recently, one thing that I do with the people on my team is I actually will give them surprise days off. So I will come in and I'll let them know, like, hey, I know things have been rough with A, B, and C because I know about their life. I asked them about their life. Let's go ahead and give you the day off. And what it does, it instills trust into these employees so that later on, when I need to withdraw that trust for a situation or fast-paced interaction, I already have that existing relationship with them to then pull on that trust. But I'm sure you have examples as well, Eugenia.
No, that was great. That was actually one of the big things too on my mind is just what you spoke to of like putting in deposits so that when you need to make a withdrawal, there's something in the bank there. And we've seen this. We have a seasonal cycle as well as many of our clients do. And tax season is really hard. There's a lot of stress, but there's a lot that can be done beforehand to build rapport with your team, to let them know that you are in their corner, you care about them. And it'll alleviate some of the natural, again, human tendencies that come when you are stressed out, and whether it's saying something more harshly than you meant to, or dumping a project on someone and you really know you should have been more gracious and kind in asking them if they would be willing to take it on instead of just saying, here you go. But that rapport that you've built beforehand goes a long way because then everyone knows we're all in this together. We're going to make it through. It will be okay again later. We will be able to recover. And that doesn't negate needing to care for them. Like Katherine was just saying, caring for your staff and your employees during the hard season, during the peak seasons where everything is stressful, you still need to find ways to care for each other, for yourself, for your employees, to take that time to not burn out. But there's a lot more that you can do when things slow down again and to build up again. So that's all really great stuff that can be put into that relational bank and making your employees feel like they are valued year round, even when it gets a little harder. I think another thing that we do on a more practical level is we do try to have fun with each other. And I know that people hear that sometimes with a bit of a cynical approach of who really wants to have a forced group lunch that, is and sometimes it can go that way, but we've found that actually just allowing enough time in a cheerful, healthy atmosphere where we do respect each other and we respect each other's work product and as professionals, then spending some time relationally together and just taking some time off work to enjoy a lunch together or an outing to go play pickleball, for instance. It does go a long way. One of my favorite things that I personally really love about TaxProMarketers ways to bond together is the Christmas parties that we do. So we have an annual Christmas party. I'm sure not everyone on the team loves it. And this is why you do different things so that different people get to enjoy the things that they like. But this is the one that I like, and it's our Christmas party. And every year we give out Dundee Awards in the spirit of The Office, for those of you who enjoy the show. So we love coming up with Dundee Awards for the most ridiculous, sometimes awkward, sometimes just funny things that we've noticed around the office. And they really do highlight, some of the current camaraderie, some of the joy of just having friends that you do work with. Some of it is truly to encourage people. There are some things that we celebrate that are worth celebrating on a deeper level, but some of them are just completely ridiculous. We have one employee who really loves her dog. And we actually all happen to love dogs and bring them into the office often. And that's just our culture. We often have dogs at the office. But this one employee really loves hers, especially more than anyone else.
So much.
So much. She even has dress up clothes for the dog for like special sporting events and things. And so one year during our Christmas party, we gave her a Dundee Award for being the most likely to dress her dog up. And things like that they sound silly. They are silly. They're very silly, but it still makes everyone laugh. It brings everyone together and it adds a note of joy that would otherwise just be clocking in, clocking out, get your job done, and lacking some of that human touch. So that's something we strive for. There is a note of caution, of course, in that, because I was even hesitant to share some of these stories because it does take a real relationship behind it. It can't be forced or it can turn into a negative thing. Being made fun of for dressing up your dog can feel like reliving your worst 7th grade days all over again. So take a note of caution there that this is when you have already established goodwill, trust, and relationship with your employees. And then you can have fun together and it really does become pure joy. Katherine, do you have any other thoughts around that or anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, I wanted to say if a Dundee's competition feels slightly out of your creative reach, don't worry. There's ways to have camaraderie outside of that. We love our Dundees. I actually think it promotes healthy inner team dynamics as well as competition for these. We have someone who competes every year for what's called the Meme King. It's great. But for those of you who feel like that's a little bit out of reach, we have things like fantasy football, which is pretty standard in an office environment. But if you create a group chat around it or some kind of online message forum where you can communicate about it, the trash talk that will happen in that forum is real, definitely needs to be monitored, but it does create a sense of camaraderie and connectedness to the team, which then flows into projects and interacting on high stress situations. So like Eugenia was saying, it's pretty vital in order to have that for those high pressure situations later on.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. And it also leads to the team opening up to each other, not just the dynamics between the employer and the employee and taking care of them, but everyone supporting each other when you have that rapport built throughout the whole team. And this for us has led to us celebrating each other's achievements, both the big ones and the small ones, but it's not just the people at the top calling out the people at the bottom of patting them on the back and telling them they did a good job, but it really is the whole team often doing shout outs about something that they saw or something they were impressed by. This person developed something, that person did some research and discovered this cool thing that is going to help all of us now. We all appreciate it and support each other. And that's also a big part of our team culture, is just being quick to praise, being quick to spot and look for the good that we see in each other and in our work. It's great to take time to look for things like that and to remind your team that it's not something that they can't do as well for each other, and to bring to everyone's attention. So we love doing that. Another question I wanted to ask, Katherine, if you don't mind, from you specifically, I think you touched on this a little bit earlier. What are some things you do when you notice that an employee's productivity is going down, and maybe you start to wonder if that's burnout or if it's something else? What are some of the steps you take to figure that out?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, that's pretty normal. I'll just share a story. There was an employee I had a few years ago who their performance gave the impression of being very punch in, punch out kind of mentality about their work. And at TaxProMarketer, we really try to have a sense of passion and ownership in our work. Instead of like berating them about this lackluster attitude, I was like, this is an opportunity where I can speak into maybe that lack of passion. So I took time to write down some characteristics of leadership or excellence that I saw in them. And then in our meetings, when we would get together, I would intentionally speak this over them. And then once this praise had been spoken, I would give them opportunities to demonstrate new leadership or ownership of projects. I mean, unsurprisingly, the employee responded to the encouragement and through that developed a passion for their work. You really do have to like believe in your employees before they believe in themselves. The way that you would be able to kind of assess where someone is at is just talking to them. I would say anyone who's worked in business has at least accumulated a sense of human or social interpersonal relational skills. So just by talking to someone, ask some questions about their home life. It could be a personal situation that's affecting their work. It could be something interpersonal office dynamics where they feel less than or they don't feel included. Whatever the case may be, just by asking simple questions in a caring way, not necessarily in a pointed way, it allows for them to have that honest conversation with you about what might be the situation. So I would just say it boils down to communication.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to summarize all of it, is like, this is how we relate to the people. And it keeps coming back to the relationship and the communication that we work to build. Don't always have time to do it at all. Sometimes don't have time to do it well, but we're always striving for that. And those little bits really do add up so that when something like this happens, we have something to stand on and to reach out to the person. That's really great. And I think you do this so well with our team of just keeping a pulse on how the team is doing and keeping track of it. Would you mind actually sharing how often you check in with people, or like your rhythms for that or systems for it?
Sure. I mean, people that I oversee directly and intimately, I do at least a weekly check-in, if not more. For those who are not necessarily I'm in direct supervision over or provide direct oversight, I would say I'm checking in with them every other week. And by that, I typically mean I'm just interacting with them on a personal level and it's not work related. There are other things that I'm checking on to see how they're doing. But yeah, those are just like relational questions, and the check-ins on a weekly basis with those that I have oversight for, those are intentional scheduled meetings where we're sitting down, we're problem solving together. I'm seeing how they're doing. So those are much more intentional than the more relational check-ins that I'm doing with people outside of my immediate sphere. I know you are like the queen of checking in with everyone and having the pulse on everything that's happening at TaxProMarketer. I'm actually curious to know, what are your methods for connecting with people?
I do about the same, I think. Try to do it once a week for those I work directly with, but every few weeks, maybe once a month for everyone else on a rotating basis as much as I can get to. I do have a list of our team so that I can scan through and get to someone new whenever I have time. Like if I have 5 minutes and I think, oh, this is great, I can squeeze something in these 5 minutes, I could reach out to one of our employees and just see something about how they're doing. And I'll scan through that list and see where I left off and see who's been the longest without me checking in on them. And usually it just means like remembering that they told me that their dog was sick a month ago and saying, how's your dog doing? Is she any better? And again, back to the dogs. I guess I like dogs too, as much as everyone else. So that's generally what I end up doing, I think. And I would say that actually, Katherine, you've done this for me as well. And it reminds me that for those of you who have a partner or someone else, this again is not just for your employees. While it is important to care for your employees, and that is what we are primarily talking about here, caring for each other goes a long way too. And so, of course, you will have more communication back and forth with someone like a partner or someone else in high authority alongside you, your right-hand person, but to not neglect occasionally just making sure that they're doing okay, that they're satisfied with their job, with what you're giving them, with the training you're providing for them, that this feels fulfilling. They feel like they have a place to grow, that it isn't becoming either too much, too stressful, and burnout is, looming near, or that it's becoming monotonous and boring and they feel like they're starting to lose interest. Those might be things that feel like, well, you notice them, of course, right away, but you may not. And so checking in once in a while can go a long way too, and catching things like that and making small adjustments that can change the entire trajectory of where that person is going. So I think you're really awesome about that, Katherine. So even hearing you talk reminded me to make a point of it. So,
Eugenia.
So I think that's most of my big points. I think we probably have time for a little bit more if you wanted to add anything, Katherine.
Yeah, I feel like we've said so many helpful things. I just want to reiterate, employee care, especially in today's climate, can kind of be a buzzword. And there might even be people listening to this who are like, oh, employee care, we've already done that and it doesn't work. I just want to let you know, it's not a buzzword. If you want to retain your employees, if you want to scale as a business, you need to pay attention to how you're caring for your employees. Even if you don't take any of the tips away from what we said today, I would really make intentional time to sit down and write down the environment that you want to create for your employees. If you don't know the vision for the workplace that you want your employees to experience, it's not going to happen. If you don't know the environment that you're creating, they definitely don't. Or if they do, they're picking up on a negative environment. So even if you feel like, oh, employee care, that's just a buzzword, it's not. Marketing as an industry, it has an annual turnover rate of about 30%. This fast-paced industry, as well as the very stressful world of finances, is just a place where a lot of employee turnover is real. And yet, TaxProMarketer has sustained incredible employment rates. We're kind of unheard of in a marketing industry. There's a reason for that. So I'm not saying you have to take all of our tips, but I would just really encourage you to take time to think about the environment you're creating for your employees if you want sustainable employment for your business. I know all of you want to grow, so please just sit up and take note, especially to Eugenia. She's really amazing at what she does. There's so many people on our team. Listen to Troy's message. I think you'll glean a lot from it. But yeah, if you take anything away, this is not a buzzword. This is necessary.
Yes. That is excellent. We'll see you all later at the next episode, which I think might be about Client Stack. Hopefully, have a great day.